Hi, this is Brandon, Mother of Palms Astrology. This is called February 20th, Transformation of New Atlantis, Neptune, Pluto, and Uranus. So, talking about so many different concepts bundled. If you're talking about transformation, you're talking about something that's icky on the inside, metamorphosis, cocooning, if you're talking about New Atlantis, that's a phrase that you see with Western metaphysics and philosophy. I think it stems from Francis Bacon, the 17th century or 16th century scientist, and it was a utopian concept, a blueprint for New America or the New World. So this video is discussing that concept, sketching it out for you to understand the astrological event going on in a few days. And when you look at astrology, you're looking at tendencies, the energies that are the most abundant at any given moment express themselves. The stronger the energy, the more expressive it is. So when we look at this chart, and stelliums are great indicators of change. Full moons are good indicators. The entries of planets into new signs are great indicators. And in this case, we're in a special situation where one planet, Neptune, is beginning a new cycle. It's entering into the first sign of the zodiac, Aries. So Neptune's important. It's easy to overlook the actual force that Neptune represents. It stretches beyond mythology, beyond the concept of Neptune being a brother or a sibling of Jupiter. Astrologically, we look at Neptune as a type of octave or expression or alteration of Jupiter. And we designate rulership of Pisces to it. Pisces is an interesting sign. People consider the water element as entirely passive in astrology and in esoterica. We fail to remember in mythology that the gods are quote-unquote incestuous, meaning that they combine their energies freely and they depend on each other as a network. So when you look at Pisces, you're not only seeing water energy, you're seeing a gap that is filled, a space between two elements. And you're seeing the space element, which is Saturn. You're seeing a few things. One of the things that people overlook is that Pisces is related to libido, sexual energy, because of the line of force that it represents. And this is where we see Jupiter, the god, his reputation as impulsive, tempestuous, sexual, adulterous. Now, the highest expression of Neptune and Pisces is under Venus, which is love. And this is the line of force that unites two things. This is why Jupiter, Pisces, Neptune is related to wisdom and learning and teaching, because of the ability to transmit and connect and relate. And there we see the water element. So we see the sign Pisces. We can see how it expresses in people and famous people, celebrities. The famous race car driver is a Pisces. I think his name is Mario Andretti. He's a Pisces. He represents the line of force and action. He has Pisces energy with Aries energy. We have Rudolf Steiner, who is a spiritualist, an esotericist. He emphasizes connection to the spiritual world. We have on the worser spectrum Harvey Weinstein, who suffers under the challenge of boundary that Pisces faces, and the sexual impulsivity. And we have plenty other examples of how this archetype works. So the important thing to stress here is that Neptune is very much like Jupiter. And Pisces. It is a charger, an actualizer. When Peter Thiel talks about the Toolism concept, the actualized human, he's misguided in that he's applying that spiritual concept not to love but to power and control. And it stems in part, or it goes parallel to the occult Nazism, the symbolism and the shock troopers, the and the occult vein in that realm. They're misguided and misapplying it, but the reality is that there is that the energy of Pisces is energy itself, libido, the actualizer, the Jupiter thunderbolt. So when you have a planet that enters into a new cycle, a new round of the zodiac, it doesn't take much to understand that you're going through a new cycle in civilization. Now, it takes the sun 365 days, 1 year, to transit around the zodiac. So that's 1 year cycle. On the other hand, it takes Neptune about 184 years to transit the zodiac. So that's several lifetimes. So that indicates a 1.5 century period of change through Neptune. This important planet energizes us, actualizes us. And Liz Green was very much correct in her Neptune book when she said that when she considered that Neptune was a planet of glamour. This is the feast with the gods, that type of energy, the energy of we're here, we're present. You know, that F. Scott Fitzgerald, type of energy. is what Neptune and Pisces present. We're actualizing. Anytime Neptune is in effect, we're progressing into our shoes. We're filling into ourselves as we're meant to be. Because Jupiter is ultimately a karmic planet in that it guides fate. So this is the planet that is the archetype of actualization. So when it begins a new round in the zodiac, it's actualizing and very potentiated. And whatever happens or whatever is imprinted at this time becomes the path that we tread for that almost 200 years. So it means for it to enter into Aries that we're going to be fulfilling and actualizing into our independent nature. Think back to when Uranus was in Aries throughout the 2010s, 2011 to around 2017. Division, division, division. We'll be alternating between the divisive nature of Aries, which is the energy of war, the planet Mars, and the energy of liberation, independence, individuality, and free will. You'll see that on good Neptune days throughout this period, we'll actualize into being more independent. We'll feel that we can accomplish things. We'll feel empowered and encouraged and supported to act out of the box. Keep this in mind. Thinking out of the box is where revolutions tend to happen when we're in these periods. When we're in periods of crisis, they say that we tend towards religion. But when we're in periods of frustration, we tend to go into a revolutionary state. So the energy of revolution lines up here with the energy of the new cycle of Neptune. So this indicates that we're in a period where we will experience great societal changes, great revolutions. No longer will we be co-opted by the partisanship sort of aspect of things, polarized thinking. We'll be thinking of ourselves first. And in turn, if we do this under love, we'll be learning to think of other people like we think of ourselves. You know, we'll think for them in ways that help them. And you know, on the scale of civilization. So, you know, empowerment is where it's at. Now, where along we alterate on that, because there's always, you know, the worst part of it and the best part of it, depends on the planets that are in aspect to Neptune at this time. So, February 20th is important because the moon is conjuncting Neptune. The moon is the weaver. She weaves the threads of fate, and she makes them into something coherent. So this is where things flow. So, right next to Neptune, Saturn just enters Aries on this date. Saturn is a planet of leveling. This is the time where Janus, the god of new beginnings, the god of transitions, begins. This is why the Romans changed the new year to December, because Saturn is the energy of winter. Saturn is the energy of the initiation of new cycles. when he's in his benefit. If he's not, if he's poorly aspected, then this turns into something very destructive. But in this case, it's relatively well aspected. It's only being conjuncted. So it's a sign of a leveling out, and that goes hand in hand with the idea of a new cycle. And the idea isn't to convince you that this is happening. The idea is to characterize it for you to sort of get the picture of the importance of this moment. So with Neptune and Aries, we have the stage set for a new cycle, for a very potentiating, energizing sort of cycle. No bad aspects to it. We have an aspect to Pluto. Pluto is the planet of transformation. Really, I'd say that it's a planet that deepens thought. You have to think about how thinking arises. It arises through conflict. If I'm stuck on a problem, I have to sit down and I have to think through it. And that's how a deepening of mind goes. And that's how we increase our thinking. On the collective scale, you could think about the global frustrations that we have that are kind of tucked away in the back of our minds. Not everybody knows that there's a cabal. Not everybody knows that there's banking elites, that there's legislators and politicians and governments that are actively suppressing us. A lot of people get caught up. They say, the peanut gallery. They let them get caught up at the small fights while the big players make the changes behind the scenes. That's always how it goes. And that's where revolutions happen, is that, you tax me too many times, you tax my family too many times. Generation after generation, you're taken away from us, you're not given to us. Well, this is a karmic theme. That is an autumn energy. Why? Because autumn begins with Libra, the scales of justice, balance. Scorpio is at the heart of autumn. Scorpio isn't concerned with chain breaking. It's concerned with chaining. The best aspect of it is karmic justice. You see this in characters such as Judge Dredd, Vigilante Justice. That's Scorpio energy. It is not concerned with the best welfare for mankind, at least not on the human expression of it. It's simply concerned with force of judgment, or judgment of force. And, force of judgment. So you have to characterize it and say, these taxes are getting ridiculous. You're seeing it. People have even been saying for a decade, we're in a Kali Yuga cycle. Kali being the goddess of destruction in Hinduism. So you're watching the collapse of civilization in real time. The 2012 Mayan predictions. We've witnessed a very slow fall of civilization. In esoteric streams on the internet, they talk about the global reset. So we have these themes that are building up slowly of transformation. So it only takes the right planet at the right time to set that in motion. Well, that's where Pluto's at. Pluto's freshly in Aquarius for about a year now. It's been working its way. And it's in a sextile to Neptune, which is a good aspect. So what this does is this helps for this entire cycle to decompress that energy, that frustration, that civil disobedience, if you want to call it that. And that civil disobedience is going to lead to transformations in our civilizations. Essentially, what we're looking for is what parallels to Pluto right now on the global trend. And that is just the total dissatisfaction with government. You know, it's been building, it's been coming to a head. Um, so with this, new 184-year cycle, it's going to be expressing as civil disobedience, unrest, and then it's going to turn into thoughts. How can we rebuild civilization and such? And it's really hard to characterize this because it's such a big, time frame. But, just it's obvious, like, the pendulum's going to pivot away from the Roman imperialist banking cabal, the tax debt enslavement system, the the dark networks that we don't even know about, just scratching the surface. The way that I really receive it in my mind is just a transformation, like, the glass and the steel. If you're an aesthetic person, like, that even stepping into Walmart really turns you off, because, like, the buzzing lights, the white fluorescence, the way that all the plastics, the polymers on the floor, it's all fake. It's all very plastic. And that's one of the things that Aquarius energy fights against, which is where Pluto is in. Aquarius is the energy of the nurturer. In tarot, it's the star, the one that bears water. And that's the most natural thing that we can bear, because they're not just talking about water. They're talking about a woman who bears herself. It's talking about the act of service to humanity. It's talking about Mother Earth. So it's coming back to nature, is what Pluto in that sign means. It's going to transform all of this Pluto Libra kind of fakeness, the air, the implants, the augmentations. It's going to take that away. It's going to bring us back to nature. That's what Pluto signifies. So think about that. Discontent, transformation, going back to nature in a sextile, compatibility to Neptune, the actualizer, the energizer, the energizer bunny. And then we have Uranus, which is at the end of Taurus. It's at the end of its own cycle, the culmination of Taurus. What is Taurus? It's the energy of the resurrected God. Of course, it goes hand in hand with the energizing energy of Neptune. Why is it the energy of the resurrected God? Because it's the sign that comes after Aries. It's the sign that comes after division. Think about it this way. Like I said, Uranus was in Aries from 2011 to 2017. Throughout that period, we became super polarized. Left versus right. Right versus left. No middle ground. That doesn't, just because you don't see the middle ground doesn't mean it doesn't exist. The middle ground in this case is the ordinary people that wanted just normal lives, paying attention to the everyday gripes. Again, growing every day, kind of discontent. Where's my representation? This is where you get the concept of Taurus, the bull, as a silent sufferer. Someone who's just taking the pain, a day at a time. And this energy, when Uranus entered into Taurus, we suddenly started to see that the left versus right paradigm was going away. We saw the Me Too movement come out, and we started to see that it was less about right versus left and more about people and humanity versus bad actors. And this has finally culminated this year with the trial, with whatever's going on with the Epstein files, so it's culminating, and it's just expressing that energy of retaliation and a sort of new cycle, because you're no longer in the divisive state. So that energy is imprinting at the same time with the energy of transformation with Pluto and the energy of the new cycle with Neptune, 184 years of change. Try to think about it, try to imagine it. The way that I picture it, like I said, is that the steel, the glass, the skyscrapers, the noise, the machinery, that's slowly going to transform. It's going to be melted away by under the fire of anger and discontent. And it's going to transform into nature, the nurturer, the Aquarius. All those buildings are going to melt away, and it's going to turn into a more natural society. I picture lotus flowers. The end game, of course, is New Atlantis, which would, I don't know how to really... I would imagine that, just like some sources say, it'll be just like a new Renaissance, What that means, I could only imagine a touch or a call back to nature, Kind of like Terence McKenna says, mushrooms, trance dance. I think the push is really just obvious to get back to ourselves, to our roots, to reconnect to our hearts and our artistic sides. And that's what all of this signals. I don't really have time, and I've never looked into it. Maybe in the future I will. The kind of important points of this transformation, but that's probably for a future video. Thanks for listening, guys, and take care.